Welcome to Dad's Watching Sports, Sunday, May 14th, episode 16. We are so glad that you are checking us out, whether it be on our iTunes podcast, on our website, through YouTube, however you're checking us out, through our Facebook page, Twitter. We appreciate that, and we're looking forward to another great show here with Dad's Watching Sports. If you're not familiar with the show, we talk some of the biggest news in sports, but we also talk about our lives as dads and our households. We all have young kids, and as you can imagine, it's only even amplified during this quarantine and during the COVID-19 pandemic. But we're excited that you're a part of the show. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles, Matt Kirk, as always. And, you know, we also have some special guests along the way. Sometimes we just keep it with the three amigos, but a lot of times we bring in a special guest so we can get some additional opinions, some additional input. And then also, you know, we try to have some really cool guests that can talk about the things that they do in their lives, how it kind of correlates to our podcast, and then also how it correlates to their life as a dad. And today is no exception whatsoever, as we've got Peter Breeden. Peter is joining us. Peter, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, some of your hobbies, maybe favorite sports teams, and just kind of introduce yourself to us.
All right. Well, my name's Peter Breeden, like Michael said, and some of my favorite hobbies, I like, hunting. I'm a big hunter and obviously a big fisherman, and I'm an avid sports fan. I love to follow sports, and I know it's an unpopular opinion living in Southeast Oklahoma half the year, but my favorite sports team's pretty much anybody who plays OU.
There we go.
I like anybody playing OU. And actually Baylor as well. My youngest sister goes to Baylor, so it's always a good time when they lose.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And so as far as family goes, my wife and I are married to a beautiful woman named Mackenzie. And we just had our first baby, a little girl named Elliot Jean. And she's a little redhead, pretty fiery. Already I'm wanting to buy her anything she wants. And she's not even 4 months old yet. So
there you go. Yeah, man, we're all in the same boat with you there. Well, obviously we've got you on this show, obviously to talk through some sports stuff, but you've got a pretty cool career that you have there too. Just tell us just kind of briefly about what it is you do for your day job.
Yeah, so I'm the head fly fishing guide for Beavers Fly Shop, November through the end of May, and for the Sportsman Outdoor and Fly Shop in Lake City, Colorado, from June until the end of October. And basically what I do is fly fishermen of all skill levels, whether you're just getting into it or you've been fly fishing for years, they book me to take them out on the river for a day. Typically, I know where the fish are. I can rig them up with the flies that are current, and always have a little instruction, constructive criticisms, stuff that we can do to help them up their game and be more efficient and successful out on the water.
Well, I know, speaking as someone who has no idea and is very inexperienced in fly fishing or fishing in general, I know I would take all the advice that you give out there. But Peter, we're looking forward to having you on the show today, and we'll get into a little bit more about the outdoor life and specifically fly fishing here in just a little bit. But again, those that are checking us out, if you're checking us out for the first time, thank you so much. Go into the Apple Podcast app there on your smartphone, subscribe to us, rate, review, give us some feedback. We want to know from our diehard listeners, whether you're in the United States, whether you're over in the Philippines and the great country of Canada, or even our Irish buddy over there in Dublin. Give us a review. We want to hear what you guys think about the show, what topics you'd like to hear, what are some things going on in your lives as well. And we would love to do that. We'll talk about it on our show. We mentioned this last week. We are officially a member of the RTF Sports Network. If you didn't have a chance, go to rtfsportsnetwork.com on Mondays at noon Central, and you'll hear our show every single week. And we appreciate the guys over there at RTF Sports. Also, you can check them out on social media. We'll be kind of linking up with them some through our social media accounts as well, doing some cross promotion, but very, very excited about that. And of course, you can catch us out, Dad's Watching Sports. Matt's got the Instagram. I check on the Facebook and the Twitter. You can check us out on YouTube if you're checking out our video. We've got an awesome new video feed that if you're watching us, I hope you enjoy it. If you're not watching, check us out on YouTube or Facebook. And Matt, we are getting into the TikTok world. I'll be honest, I don't know a thing about it, but I downloaded the app, and my wife's been trying to explain to me how we should do this. But I'm very excited about TikTok. Matt, I know you got a little experience with some TikTok. Are you excited to have us there giving some Dads Watching Sports?
I am. I'm going to have to get that account info so I can make some cool videos, get some cool dad content on there for sure.
Without a doubt. No doubt about it. All right, guys, we're going to get into some great topics. We've got some sports back. Hallelujah. And we're going to talk about that. But one thing that I've got to bring up, And I've got to be a little sensitive here because I don't know if he's a listener or not. But I've got a neighbor 2 doors down that nice guy. We're overly cordial. We see each other. We're like, hey, how's it going? He's got 2 young kids. We have that kind of going in common. But my man's got a huge truck. I think it's maybe a Dodge. And for whatever reason, our driveways are a little bit on the slant. Not too bad, not nearly as bad as yours, Kyle, but it's a little bit on the slant. And for some reason, my man just can't seem to pull all the way up in his driveway. And he consistently, and I mean every single day, leaves the tail end of his truck in the middle of the sidewalk. My family, we're an active family. We like to get out for walks. We've had to because of this quarantine. I like to run and push our kids in the double stroller, and it drives me insane every time we're coming around to their house and there's his truck parked right in the middle of the sidewalk, which means we have to get out in the middle of the street and then get back on the sidewalk. So guys, Kyle, I'm going to put it to you first. Should I mention it to him and say something?
So here's the thing. You've never been one to drive. I've known you since 5th grade or 6th grade, somewhere in there. You've never been one to drive a big truck. So you don't understand what it's like.
Well, let me fully explain this. He leaves 20 feet of room in front of his truck between his truck and the house. At least 20 feet. Pull up 5 more feet, my man, and give us our sidewalk.
Okay. I didn't know. I remember your driveway being a little bit short, but maybe it's longer than I remember. If that's the case, yes, say something. But don't do it. We've had some neighbors leave notes in our anonymous notes in our mailbox.
No.
Don't be that guy.
I'm not going to be that guy.
Knock on the door and say, "Hey, man, like this can't happen anymore."
All right, so Matt, another detail I left out is my good neighbor here, who's just a wonderful person, and he's a great neighbor other than the fact that he can't park correctly, works for the sheriff's office here in the town that we live in. So again, what do you think? Do I bring something up to him, or do I just kind of let it slide and continue to walk in the street?
Man, as you guys know, I'm an avid walker. I'm out every day. This happens in my neighborhood all the time.
Yep, bring it on. Come on.
There's actually a guy with a Ford truck, and I don't like Fords as it is. I'm sorry, Peter. But I want to buy him some truck nuts and put on the back of his truck. I think that's what we should do to him.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I'll give you guys an update next week on what we end up going with. But man, it drives me crazy. And I wanted to take a picture and show it on the show, but I was like, you know what, that's probably crossing that line a little bit too much. But I'll maybe have an update on the parking gate coming up in the next couple of weeks. All right, guys. Sports are back. Live sports are back. Praise God, because now we have something to watch. We have something to talk about. Matt, I know you're excited. We've had a couple of NASCAR races here within the past couple of weeks. We'll get started with that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a big sports fan. I've always found myself a huge sports fan, and have been in complete denial during this quarantine where we haven't had sports. But Matt, I'm going to be honest with you, man. NASCAR just doesn't do it for me, and it hasn't even drawn me back in, even though we haven't had sports in a couple of months. But I know you're glued in. What have you thought about the latest in the NASCAR races with coming back for live sports?
I'm excited about it myself. There aren't fans. It's probably, honestly, the safest sport you can do this with besides golf, because the people are going to keep their distance and they're going so fast. I don't think there's any chance that they're going to spread it within themselves. I will say that they have had to trim their pit crews pretty hard. And, when they're at home, they can't have as many people there to work on their cars. So it has given them some constraints into that regard. And they're not qualifying. So they go and they're doing like a random draw. So, it's typically based on who's the fastest car of where you qualify at. Mm-hmm. But for these, they're actually just doing it random. So like Chris Buescher, for one, he's not, a great driver, but he could be on the pole just out of pure luck. Sure. And, it's pretty cool. There's actually a race going on right now for those who care at this time at 8:39 on Sunday night. And currently Alex Bowman, my new favorite driver, because he drives my old favorite driver's car, which is Earnhardt Jr. He drives the 88 car. And then Truex Jr. is in second, Kyle Busch third, Chase Elliott fourth, and William Byron, his Alex Bowman's teammate, is in fifth.
Really quickly, the guy that had a horrific accident, Newman, is he back?
Yes.
Is he back in racing?
Yes, he is. He is back. The Rocket Ryan Newman is back in the 6th car. He's actually in 11th place right now.
Oh man, it's been nice. I mean, being able to come home, get off the river, and I'm not really one to watch the news. So in the past, my getaway has been watch some sports, turn on some baseball, and catch the end of the game. That's been historically what I've done this time of year, and been suffering without it. Been unfortunately getting a lot more addicted to video games and stuff. So I can kind of, I know that Kinsey and the baby, I can kind of get back off the video games a little bit and tune into some games, maybe pause that game and go help out with the baby, been able to get back in and catch up, still watch some baseball. So it's been nice.
Absolutely. Really. Kyle, I know you checked out some of the golf today, specifically the Peyton Manning and Tiger versus Tom Brady and Phil. What's been your thoughts on some of the sports that have come back so far?
It was nice just to have a sport on TV to watch, and it was fun. I mean, the banter back and forth between those guys, it was obvious. Like Tiger and Phil had played a lot; they've gotten to know each other. They kind of went back and forth. Tom and Peyton had some lines. It was fun to watch, just because, like, man, it's something. But there was some good stuff. Peyton was real consistent, real solid. Kind of the way his career went, right?
Exactly, absolutely.
Tom had the shot of the day. On 8, he was probably 150 yards out, and the hole was kind of in the middle of a hill. That ball hit a little bit above the hole, probably a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet above the hole, and rolled back down in the hole. And Tom hadn't played well at all that up until that shot. And it's like he finally got settled in. So it's kind of the way Brady worked, in especially in the big games, right? Like he seemed to be a slow starter and pick it up at the end. And he's kind of the way he played today. So it's interesting that even out off the football field, both guys kind of did what they do.
There you go.
One thing happened that I thought was pretty cool. Manning and Brady went back and forth and an interview they had, and they were talking about how Peyton Manning kind of took a jab at Brady. It was saying, between him and Tiger, he counted they have 17, but Brady and Phil only have 11 between themselves. And then he was saying how Brady, was betraying the people of Boston and that they should have played their game up in Boston.
Nice.
So that way everyone in the area, would hate him.
There you go.
I thought that was all pretty funny.
Peyton taking a couple of shots, not really like Mr. Manning there, who's usually, Mr. Cool, calm, and collected.
Well, Peyton had to jump in and take care of his brother. I don't know if you saw Brady's tweet when Eli jumped on Twitter and said something about, just like Eli jumping in, or finally something about coming in at the fourth quarter or whatever. So it was – Peyton had to take care of little brother.
Yeah, you got to keep it
just
in the
like
family.
He always does.
That's right, absolutely. Guys, we got just a few minutes here before the break, so I'll get just a really quick thought from everybody, and we've really got about 2 minutes left. NHL, they've put out a playoff scenario for potentially 24 teams. Just kind of quickly, we'll just kind of go round robin here. Peter, we'll start with you, then Matt, and then Kyle. Yes or no? Does that sound good to you? And do you think that we'll move forward with that in the next month? Peter.
That sounds good with me. I mean, to be honest, I'm not as keyed in on the NHL as I should be, but I certainly love watching playoff hockey. That's always been historically a time I can get together with my friends and go out to hopefully a local bar if it starts to open back up, or just get together. And it's something I enjoy watching. So I think that'd be good for everybody.
Matt, what about you? What's your thoughts on the 24 team playoff potentially?
Man, I don't like it because those teams that worked hard for those number one coveted spots to get the bye in hockey, the 1 and 2, well, I don't guess they do that in hockey anyway. But anyway, I think that the 8 that made it in, that were there, which actually our Nashville Predators squeaked in in their last game to get that 8 spot. So to me, no, I don't want them to expand it any more than 8.
A break. We got to go to a quick break here, and we'll come back to Kyle's take, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the sports that are coming up later. But when we do come back, we're going to talk with Peter Breeden all about being a fly fishing guide and what all the outdoor fun stuff that he's got going on. We'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. All right, we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Thanks so much for joining us, episode 16. It is Sunday, May 24th. Michael Draper, Matt Kurt, Kyle Castles, and Peter Breeden joining you here. Kyle, before we left, we were talking NHL playoffs. They go on to 24 teams potentially. We talked about some potential buys, some teams that may not be in the running right now getting in anyways. What's your quick thoughts on the NHL format so far?
So a 24-team playoff sounds great. I'm down. Hockey's one of those sports where if you get a hot goaltender, anything can happen. So you see more frequently like an 8-1 or a 7-2 and kind of make a run. So I think going 24, a 12 beating a 1 is very possible. Here's the problem I have. You're not going to see that 12-1 because what we're going to have is the top 4 teams play round robin to seed, and then the bottom 8 teams play a best of 5 series to decide who goes where. This is convoluted, and I would just play straight up based on winning percentage. I want to see that 12-1. I want to see that 2-11 because I think in hockey, like I said, if that goaltender gets hot, it could be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and the Predators know all about that from a couple of years ago when we made the big run as what were we, the 7 or 8 seed there in the Western Conference to make the NHL Finals. So, all right, guys, we're going to shift gears. We'll get back. We'll try to get in the Major League Baseball and the NBA before the show is over with, but definitely wanted to switch gears and talk with Peter just about fly fishing and all of it. So, Peter, again, if somebody's just now tuning in or joining the show, just kind of give us just a quick little recap on where you work and kind of just an overall thoughts on what you do as a lead guide for fly fishing.
Yeah, so I work half the year in southeast Oklahoma on the Lower Mountain Fork River. We're the only year-round trout stream in Oklahoma, and I work as the head guide for Beavers Bend Fly Shop. And then I'm there November through the end of May, and I live in southwest Colorado in Lake City from June to the end of October. And as the head guide, I kind of help out with the shop, manage the other guides. I get to take out typically first requests coming in for trips. But my job as a fly fishing guide revolves around getting people out on the water, no matter what their skill level, from beginners all the way through advanced, experienced people, and just showing them new tips, tricks, techniques on the river, different ways to rig their fly rods, their flies, and brushing up on their skills, helping them be efficient, proficient on the water. So when they get out on a day on their own, they know what they're doing, where they're going, how to be successful.
All right, Peter. So I have to ask, man, I see all these pictures you post on social media, and I just have to know, where do you catch your fish at?
Oh, man, the river. Yeah, corner of the mouth.
I was told by my wife that you may have a pretty funny answer for that.
Yeah, my uncle. Yeah, he'd always say, "Right here."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There you go.
Okay, so now I actually do have one thing here. I'll get to it at the end. But anyway, so the question I have, tell us about you've already asked what you do as a guide. So I'll just get to my other point now. And Michael, you can edit this part out because it's getting kind of rambly.
Yep, we'll do that. Don't you worry.
I appreciate that. We all have our little dad jokes, and I'm just curious, what is your best go-to dad joke? Do you ever sneak them in on the river, when you're guiding, or what?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple fishing jokes. How do you communicate with a fish?
No idea.
Know how.
Drop it a line.
Very nice.
What'd the fish say when it ran into the wall?
Damn.
And then I've got a few longer ones that I go into, but just to kind of ease the tension out there on the water, get to know somebody.
Absolutely,
that's cool.
In those new relationships and stuff. So
for sure,
cool. I can say this: the times that we've gone out, you're pretty professional, pretty serious when you're out there. Which me as your customer, I appreciate, and we catch a lot of great fish.
Yeah, and I'm not hesitant to take you down some pretty interesting hikes to get to some untouched water. And
no, you're not.
That were successful.
Sounds like there's a story there that we may have to touch on in a recap episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Just maybe just a couple stories there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a fishing guide. How do you even get into something like that? Like how does that happen?
Well, honestly, it just kind of fell into my lap. My family, we've been going to Lake City for a long time, and I got to know the owners of the Sportsman Outdoor and Fly Shop in Lake City, and I was looking for something to do, and I reached out to them asking if they were in need of a fly fishing guide, and they said they were, and I used that as a jumping point to get to where I am here in Broken Bow. Have a really amazing story where I met the owners of Beavers Bend Fly Shop, Eddie and Roberta, and basically they've treated me like family. They're just some of the greatest people on earth, and just developing that relationship with them. Coach mentioned he was looking for fly fishing guides. We told him that my buddy and I at the time told him that we were fly fishing guides in Colorado. If he ever needed anything, to let us know. And about a week later, he called asking if we were serious, and said yes, sir. And for about a month, we lived out of my car, taking everything that came in, and just building that reputation, trying to work hard, build a good reputation that we were willing to work and go that extra mile to put our clients on fish and just enjoy a great day in the outdoors. I mean, you're out of river, cold, clear water, or if you saltwater fly fish, you're out on the ocean. It's even if the fishing's not great, it's hard to have a bad day out on the
water. Without a doubt.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've gone fly fishing once. My grandparents used to live up in northwestern corner of Montana. And so there was, I forget the river, but the river that feeds, I think, Flathead Lake there. We went out on that. Me and my cousin were up there for a week during one summer, and didn't catch a fish at all. But just standing in that water and fishing with nothing else going on, it was wonderful. So let's say I decided I wanted to get into fly fishing even more than this at one time. What do I need to do to actually get started? Other than, learn how to cast, because I never quite figured that out.
Well, even really before you learn how to cast, my recommendation would be go to a local fly shop. And again, I encourage a visit to a local fly shop over potentially big brand names. Because, you're supporting a lot of local fly shops. Those are your mom and pop stores, but you're getting in, and those people are a little bit more forthcoming, I find, with information. So they'll get you set up. They have rod and reel starter packs that come with the reel, the line, the rod, from all sorts of different rod makers that you can buy as a pack. And again, you can get those at your local fly shops. You can go in there. They'll oftentimes set the rod, reel, and line up for you. I know we do that at our fly shops. We get it going. We'll even put a rig on there for you. So that's just what I'd encourage anybody that's getting started to do, is make their first stop their local shop. And even if you're not close to any trout streams, there's local fly shops in Dallas, Fort Worth, and they're not near any trout streams or, any streams in particular. They're far away from the salt, but you can still go into that local shop such as Tailwaters and get started. And
shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Tailwaters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was trying to refrain from any name drops, but
oh no, we're trying to get sponsors, so it works.
That's right. We absolutely. I just wrote that down so we can tag them after the show. We're chatting here with Peter Breeden, who's a head fly fishing guide. Peter, this show is called Dad's Watching Sports. Obviously, we are fully involved in our kids' lives, which we know you are as well. You mentioned your young daughter there. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the work life and now especially having a young child? How does that play into what I imagine is a pretty strenuous work schedule? It is.
Being in the guide industry, you can't really turn down work and take set days off, because you never know when your next trip may come. So what I've had to do to try and balance that out, you come into conflict with clients quite a bit when you give out your personal number, whether it's to send them pictures or say if you need to get in contact with me. But where it comes into conflict after trips is I might get 15 to 20 client messages a day when I'm off of trips, and I've had to just kind of step back from immediately answering those, which I do want to get back to those people. But at the same time, when I'm off the water, being gone all day, I need to be attentive to not just, Ellie, the baby, but also my wife, Kenzie. Because I had no idea until we had this baby, what being a mother entailed. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. So, just being able to disconnect myself from the river, and it's something I'm still working on, to be completely honest, and being able to disconnect myself from the river and my clients and be there and present for my family when I'm home.
Sure. Well, we all fight that battle, man. So it's, one thing I've learned is you have to give yourself a little bit of grace in that regard. Cause it's, we all try. So that's for sure. So.
Well, and I'll tell you this, the work-life balance thing can be hard for sure, but, I can definitely give props to moms. Like with my wife's been a rock star through this whole quarantine thing and taking care of the baby while I'm working. I feel so bad I'm not able to help her, and, at the end of the day, the clients are going to understand that you have a family. They have families, and I'm sure that, that those people are just excited, but, but anyway, I'll get off my whatchamacallit here.
For sure, man. I mean, just something off on the side of that. I mean, I've had only understanding from all of my clients.
Yeah.
If I get to them the next day or whatever it may be. And I've been very lucky just to build great relationships.
Or like your family and you text them like a week later, like a month later.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even the fly shop has been great because I used to not really take many days off. Now I'm taking scheduled days off so that I can be with my family. And,
Good.
Understanding of that I have other priorities now that, I want to be attentive to. So.
Yeah. And there are times where you're out and you obviously can't, text people back when you're out traveling international fishing. I remember you went on a trip to, I can't remember that last trip you took at Christmas, but I remember the stories you told and the pictures of the fish you took. So tell us some about some of your international travel for fishing.
So I've been lucky to travel quite a few places around the world. Probably the most interesting was Mongolia. We did a 15-day float with Mongolia River Outfitters on the Annan River in Mongolia. It was a really pretty extreme trip, the travel getting over there, the flight out of Ulaanbaatar, to actually get out to where we were fishing. I remember we couldn't see anything. Clouds were covered in, and it was a test of the nerves because you'd hear terrain warning 500 feet, but you couldn't see out the windows. So
Wow.
That was interesting. But as far as just the overall trip, I mean, it was beautiful. We were fishing for a fish called a taimen, which is one of the largest trout species in the world, if not the largest. They can grow up to 100 pounds, and they're massive, and they're very, very rare. I mean, you're hoping when you fish, you're fishing for, one or two fish a day. So it's that grind. You're out there just in taking in the culture, the peoples, and just enjoying your time in another country, fishing for exotic fish. And it was really a truly mind-blowing experience. And I honestly can't wait to go back.
Yeah, man, it really sounded like a cool trip. And, another story for another time, but your flight over there was pretty crazy too, from what I remember.
Yeah, we basically spent 36 hours in the San Francisco airport.
Oh.
But I did see Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, definitely worth that for sure. Guys, we're up against a break here in just a few minutes, but we'll let Kyle ask one more question before we toss it to a quick break.
Yeah, so trout. I have never actually eaten a trout that I enjoyed. I don't catch them apparently, but I've eaten some that others have caught. Do you have like a go-to, like this is how you make trout, how you cook the trout to where it's actually good?
I personally don't eat a lot of trout. I prefer to eat, like a brook trout. It's actually a char species, but my wife, she always cooks them in like lemon, butter, and garlic, and she'll bake them. I've grilled them before, and that's always been really good to me. But again, I'm not particularly a really big trout fan, but I know a lot of people just love that lemon, butter, and garlic. That seems to be and even add some dill in there. We'll add some dill, and that usually makes it real good. So.
There you go. Well, guys, we got to head to a quick break. We'll be back after this break with more with Peter. We've got Matt Kirk, Kyle Castles, Michael Draper here. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that Peter does there as a fly fishing guide. Also, we'll get into some college football talk and some quick hitters as well. We will be right back right after these messages. We've got to pay the bills sometime. We've got to be able to do that. So we'll be right back after this commercial break here on Dad's Watching Sports. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports, the show all about dad life and our, we try to watch a little sports when they happen, even unless it's maybe NASCAR or something like that. But thanks so much for joining us here on the show. Michael Draper, Peter Breeden, Kyle Castles, Matt Kirk. Peter, one last question that I wanted to ask you about the whole fly fishing world and everything that's involved in some of the work that you do is, so I've got a daughter, she's 3 years old, and just kind of out of the blue one day, maybe last week, she says, "Hey Dad, I want to go fishing," which I fished quite a bit when I was younger, but haven't been in quite some time. So you kind of gave us a recommendation for somebody that wanted to get into fly fishing, but when you've got a young child that says, "Hey, I want to go fishing," what's your recommendations on, what we should do as dads when our kids kind of get to that age and say, "Hey, let's do this"?
Well, the biggest thing I find with parents coming out when they want to get their kids out is don't force the kid to be out there, because then it becomes not fun for them, and it burns them out. For example, Ellie, she's not old enough to really know what's going on, but we went out, Mackenzie and I went out fishing the other day with her. She started crying right away. And, instead of forcing her to be out there or a dad forcing his son to be out there fishing, if he doesn't want to do it, then call it a day. Go in, we don't try to push them to have fun. As far as gear goes, I see all the time we have little Spider-Man rods that are like 3 or 4 feet long, Barbie rods, princess rods. And that's just something that the kids come in. They're not super functional, but you don't even have to tie a real lure on. Most of them come with little blue fish or pink fish off the end of it. And you can just let them go out, cast that around, and have a good time. Just make sure they're having fun. That'll keep them wanting to continue to come back. So.
Absolutely. Peter Breeden of the Beavers Bend Fly Shop and Sportsman Outdoors and Fly Shop. Peter, again, thanks for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate all the info. We do want to shift gears really quickly to a couple more sports topics if you'll hang out with us here, and I'm interested in getting some of your takes. So, guys, if you didn't hear this over the past week, Vanderbilt University, who I'm actually repping with my beverage here, hired Candace Lee, and she is the first female athletic director in the SEC. She was an interim AD since February after Malcolm Turner just really kind of up and left after being there a year. Played basketball at Vanderbilt in the early 2000s, had stayed on with the athletic department. And Vanderbilt also becomes the first, one of the very few Power 5 conferences teams that has an African-American AD, head football coach, and head men's basketball coach, as they have Derek Mason and Jerry Stackhouse as their men's basketball coach. But guys, we all have daughters, and to see a female going into the leadership role at an SEC school as an athletic director, to me, is really cool. So Kyle, I'll put it to you first. You heard the news. What were kind of your immediate thoughts as you have a daughter there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've given this answer to other questions on the show, but it's something that I want my daughter to see as she gets older. I mean, she's almost 6 months now, so she doesn't have a clue what's going on. But as she gets older, I want women to be in positions of power, so that she can see that is an option for her. And I think that's real important. That little girls just see, like, I don't have to, I feel like when we were growing up, girls kind of were pegged into these are the types of jobs you do as a girl. That's not the case anymore, and we should have known it wasn't the case then. But the more and more females in positions of power and positions of authority we can see, I think the better it is for all girls nationwide. There
you go. Peter, you just mentioned, you and your wife have just recently had a baby girl. And I know, as we kind of talk about, as Kyle just mentioned, now we're seeing where women are in prominent and predominant roles. And we shouldn't be surprised by that because we've seen how strong our wives are and how strong our children are. But what does that mean to you as someone who's, now responsible for growing and nurturing and educating a young woman who will eventually be hopefully in a position like that?
Well, like Kyle said, I mean, it shows her that, she doesn't have to set limits on what she can do. I mean, if she wants to be an athletic director, she can be an athletic director. But the sky's the limit. And, kind of touching back on the fly fishing industry, we're seeing a lot of female guides enter the industry, which, had not been there. And so that's showing my daughter Ellie that, hey, if you want to go, it's not just a men's industry. It's not just for men. Like, you can go and there's no reason why you can't be a fly fishing guide. There's no reason why you can't be the athletic director. There's no reason why you can't do anything you want to do. And I think that sends an important message to anybody with a daughter. You know, it's empowering to them.
Absolutely. Matt, any thoughts from you as well?
Man, it excites me because I'm going to raise my daughter in an era where, that female empowerment is great. I want I have a very strong wife. She's a very strong woman, and she's extremely independent. And I want my daughter to be a spitting image of her in every way possible. And I know that, that she's in good hands with a mom like Emma that raised her to be a strong woman. And now we're also in the age where it's more common and it's not something just completely far-fetched. And I'm very happy for Candace and for her family and for the University of Vanderbilt, or Vanderbilt University, whichever it is.
That's right. VU.
Yeah. Doors.
Well, hopefully, Matt, hopefully your daughter gets your sense of humor, though. Nothing against your wife, but I think if she can bring in half the jokes that you do, she'll be in good shape. Guys, so college football, we were just kind of talking a little bit about it there with Vanderbilt. College football, ESPN article came out this past week saying if we don't have college football, the industry of college football for like the universities, they could collectively lose up to $4 billion without having a season, which would more than just cripple a majority of the athletic departments across the country. I think I read that only Texas and University of Georgia would be the only ones that wouldn't have to necessarily cut any sports because of the losses. We just had this as we finished up the weekend. Athletic directors voted for athletes to come back on campus starting in the month of June. So we know it kind of looks like things are trending back towards football happening. Kyle, I feel like we have this conversation almost every single week, but here we are on May 24th. Do you feel better about the possibility of having college football than you did, say, a week ago?
Yeah, I mean, once the ADs said that athletes can come back in June and start getting ready, I feel like we're going to get something. Do I think every school is going to participate? No. But I think we're going to get something. I don't know what that looks like. But schools are going to lose money this year because even if we do get college football, we're not going to get fans in the stands. College football is going to be empty stadiums, and that matters because if you think about not just the ticket sales, but the money that is spent on game day, especially, and no offense to our Big 12 brethren here, but especially in the SEC. There's a lot of money being spent, and you're talking about in some small towns. Mike, you went to school in Starkville. On Saturdays at a Mississippi State football game, Starkville probably doubles or even more so. The population of Starkville doubles or more on game day. Auburn is said to more than double. Auburn, Alabama, more than double on game day. Tuscaloosa has roughly about 100,000 people living in the city. Bryant-Denny Stadium holds just over 100,000 people. So you're talking about doubling the size of Tuscaloosa. Those are just the three that I looked at. So you're talking about not just these schools losing money, but people go and stay in hotels. They eat at restaurants, right? They buy gas. That money that is being taken out of those small towns is a big hit.
Yeah. Oh, there's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, like you mentioned, a majority, especially in the Southeast, majority of these college programs, other than really the only one I can think of is maybe Vanderbilt, are in smaller towns. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right there. Matt, to you, do you feel like we're closer to having college football? And I'll ask you this question as well. You're a big Razorback fan. If we do, will you go to a game this year and be in attendance?
I will not go. I will tell you that. But I do think we're going to have college football. I'm very sad because it's trending like Arkansas is not going to make their trip up to South Bend, Indiana to play Notre Dame, which my wife and I were going to go to that game. We were going to go to Chicago, eat some pizza, go to Wrigley. We were going to do the whole Chicago experience. But unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to happen. I do think we're going to have some football, though, and I think it's going to be great, and I think it's going to help people kind of start getting back to normal. It's a long way out, and I think as long as it's safe and there's, the players aren't being put at risk, coaches and anyone else isn't going to be put at risk, I think it's great. I personally will not be attending, though, because I'm not going to drive for 4 hours to have to turn around and drive home after the game. It'd be like a one-day trip, because I'm not going to go stay with anyone or stay in a hotel. So
you could stay halfway in Broken Bow with us.
I could. You're right. I could do that. Unfortunately, I have made that trip before on accident, coming home from Fayetteville one time, and we drove through the boonies around Broken Bow at around midnight, and I thought I was going to get stabbed and killed. So
Really,
it was on the outskirts of Broken Bow,
okay.
but the area we were at was very sketchy, and there was a lot of sketchy people on the side of the road.
Sounds like Broken Bow.
There you go. Peter, college football could be coming back. What are your thoughts on having some Saturdays with some college football?
Well, everybody's touched on the monetary value, loss that that will be incurred this season. But, I think if college sports don't come back, aside from just a small percentage that go play at the next level pro, whether that's in the NFL, MLB, wherever that may be, there are tens of thousands of these students that rely on these scholarships that to get an education and to better their lives, and not just at the Division I level, but partial scholarships all the way through. And
that's a great point.
College football, or just college sports collapse, the industry collapse, and these students are going to be missing out on tons of opportunities that they may have had. Again, other than the small percentage that, of course, will make it pro.
Yeah.
The rest of them, they get their education and go on to better their lives. I mean, I think that could be even a greater loss ultimately in the long run than the glaring monetary loss.
Oh yeah. That is an excellent point, because, like you said, I mean, the football and basketball programs, specifically at major power schools, aren't going anywhere. Even if we had some catastrophic financial losses, but you think about the golf programs and the tennis programs and the gymnastics programs and the swim teams, those are the kids that are going to be impacted for sure. And those are the kids, like you said, that are going to lose those scholarship opportunities. And that could be a kid that it would be the first generation in their family to go to college, and they don't get that opportunity. So yeah, it's I think there's a lot of people cheering for college football to come back, like you said, for multiple reasons.
Yes,
without a doubt. That's a fantastic point. I'm glad you brought that up. Guys, let's get into a couple of quick hitters here. We've still got quite a bit of time before the end of the show, but let's get into some quick hitters here. We're going to shift to the NFL. We've had the draft, we've had some free agency, we've had a lot of movement going on there, and now we're really kind of starting to gear up for teams having at least who's going to be on their roster for OTAs and really kind of moving through the camps. So Matt, I'll toss it to you first. Who's the NFL team out there that you feel like had the best off season and is gearing up for maybe not a run at the Super Bowl, but just a better season than what they had last year?
I think that answer is pretty obvious, and that'd be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to have a great season now with Brady and Gronk. And I feel like that they probably had the best. It was for sure Tampa Bay.
All right. Peter, what about you? Who do you think had the best offseason and the NFL is gearing up for a big run this year?
Well, Matt kind of took that from me. I mean, obviously with Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, but I'm excited to see how the Cowboys do this year. Being from the East Texas area, I'm more or less a Cowboys fan, and I'd like to see their defense kind of turn it around this year. I think with if Leighton Vander Esch comes back healthy, he really anchored that defense, and it seemed like when he got hurt last year, defensively the whole unit suffered quite a bit. So I think if he comes back as good as he has been, that Cowboys defensively should be good. And obviously the question is going to be the quarterback. I mean, if Dak's going to play, but they got Andy Dalton, and I think Andy Dalton's a really good athlete and a good quarterback. I mean, did a lot of good things in Cincinnati when they don't typically have the best team, so and best supporting players. So I think it puts a little pressure on him.
Yeah, without a doubt. Kyle?
So I was going to say Buccaneers too. I mean, you can't argue Tom Brady, Gronk. Bothers me as a Saints fan, but hopefully Brady plays football like he plays golf now that he's moved to Tampa. So I'm going to go another way, and where most people this time last year would be talking about the Cleveland Browns and their unbelievable offseason. I think this offseason is the one they needed. It's been quiet. There hadn't been hardly anything said about them. They went out and they got Jack Conklin at I think they're going to play him at right tackle, and they went out and drafted Jedrick Wills out of Alabama to play the left tackle. So I think Baker's going to be a little more protected. Another year to grow with Landry and OBJ. They address some parts on defense. I think the Browns are going to be better, and I get it. Every time you say, hey, I think the Browns have a shot at taking a step forward, they end up doing what they did last year and looking like crap. But I think the Browns got a shot to take a step forward and make a push into the playoffs. Maybe, push the Steelers for that AFC North. Steelers and Ravens for the AFC North title.
You got the MVP in that division, so that's a tough division. I mean, clearly you guys hit on it. It's the Buccaneers probably, but I was just going to try to be a little bit different. And I think that the Broncos did a lot. Matt, they got your guy Melvin Gordon, who I know you love, but you guys, I mean, we're all SEC fans. We've seen Drew Lock sling the ball around there at Missouri. They got Jerry Jeudy in the draft. They got KJ Hamler out of Penn State in the draft as well. I think the Broncos could make a little noise. They're in a pretty tough division. They're in the division of the team that I thought was going to make the Super Bowl, and the San Diego or now Los Angeles Chargers. But I think the Broncos made some pretty good moves, and I'll be interested to see how Drew Lock does with some of those weapons around him heading into next year. Guys, one last question about sports, and then, Peter, we want to touch one more thing about fly fishing with you. Guys, it's been highly debated. It seems like every sports network or group that you go to, they now with all this Last Dance stuff coming out, people have been talking about, okay, who's the top 10 NBA players of all time? We don't have enough time for everybody to go into detail. I just want to know your top 10. We'll just start with Kyle, and then we'll go Matt and Peter, and then I'll answer. We'll just go to 10 to number 1, just the names. That's all we got time for. Shoot away.
All right, so this isn't just my top 10. This is the top 10 best NBA players of all time. It cannot be argued.
College football.
Because I'm right. I'm always right.
Yeah.
So number 10, Tim Duncan. Number 9, Larry Bird. 8, Kareem. 7, Bill Russell. 6, Wilt Chamberlain. Am I counting that right? 5, Shaq. 4, Magic. 3, Kobe. 2, LeBron. And number 1 is Michael Jordan, by a much bigger gap than I would have thought before I watched Last Dance.
Matt, do you agree?
With Kyle, no, I don't agree with Kyle. I think his stuff sucks.
And that makes you wrong.
Well, Kyle, we can talk about that next week, okay?
What's your list, Matt?
Okay, so I'm going to go 10. I'm going to go with Tim Duncan. Or actually, I'm going to go with David Robinson at 10. And then I'm going to go with Charles Barkley, Dirk Nowitzki, Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Magic, Bird, Kobe, Jordan. And yes, that's no typo. LeBum James is not on my list.
And see, this is why no one agrees with you, Matt, because you cannot say the top 10 doesn't include LeBron. That's ridiculous.
I will say leaving LeBron off is one thing, and then also having Dirk in your top 10. Dirk's a great player, but he's not one of the top 10 players of all time.
He changed it forever.
Peter.
He's the epitome of the stretch 4.
I'm going to have to agree with Matt on Dirk being in the top 10. But again, that might just be my Dallas areas coming through. But, I think certainly Wilt Chamberlain. Well, I guess I should go in order. Larry Bird probably would come in for me at number 10. Number 9, I'd probably have, Kareem. Number 8, probably go with Wilt Chamberlain. Where am I at? 7, Dirk Nowitzki. I just think Dirk's really good. I think number 6, as far as just pure shooters go, I mean, Steph Curry. I don't know if we've ever seen anybody that can shoot the long ball like he can. And I'm not even a huge Golden State fan. And number 5, certainly Magic Johnson. Number 4, oh, man. I don't know, Tim Duncan. I thought he was pretty unstoppable at San Antonio. And then 3, 2, 1 would go LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan.
Well, we're going to go 4 for 4 with MJ at the top, and I don't think we'll get a whole lot of argument out of anybody there. So my top 10, I've got the Birdman, Larry Legend at number 10, the Dream Shake, Hakeem Olajuwon at number 9, Shaq at number 8, Wilt the Stilt at number 7, Magic at number 6, Kobe at number 5, Bill Russell at 4, LeBron at 3, Kareem at 2, and Michael Jeffrey Jordan at number 1. Guys, we're kind of right up against it, but Peter, we had one more question for you. I know Matt had one more question he wanted to get in just about your experience as a fly fisherman. Matt, go right ahead.
All right, Peter. So there's one thing that I know about the family is that everyone loves a good fish story. Tell us your best fishing story or your favorite fishing story.
Oh man. Well, probably my all-time favorite fishing story would be when I personally landed and this isn't necessarily a funny story, but when I personally landed my biggest brown trout ever, I was just scouting for a guide trip, fishing in Lake City, Colorado. And I'm fishing a freestone stream, which really limits the potential growing season for these trout. Anyway, out there on my own, I set the hook and just see this big fish shaking his head. And I've hunted for a 30-inch trout on this stream for better part of 20 years since I was a kid. And by myself, I finally got the upper hand, turned the fish into the net, and got him in. And that was probably to this day the greatest experience I've ever had. It was low water, nothing was in my favor, and just got lucky there.
And also, I have one more thing too, since we got a couple minutes here. I'm sorry to take over, Michael.
Well, we kind of need to. You can go ahead and I'll probably have to edit this out, but you can go ahead and ask.
Okay, I'll ask. So, Peter, everyone likes to call their fish by names on Grumpy Old Men. They call their fish the catfish hunter. So, tell us a fish that you tracked that you gave it a name for and what the name was.
Well, that brown that I caught, I named it Sauron, and it was the one brown that ruled them all. It was 18 pounds, 31 inches long, 20-inch girth. And so, yeah, we give all our big brown trout villain names because I think of them as the villains of the river. So
there we go. Absolutely. Well, Peter, thanks so much for joining us this week on Dad's Watching Sports. We really appreciate it, man. And we'll definitely keep up with all your ventures. Really quickly, tell everybody where they can find you, like on your social media accounts, so they can keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, you can go to Beavers Bend Fly Shop on Instagram or Peter Breeden Fly Fishing on Instagram, and you can see we put up clients all the time or adventures. We Iceland, Mongolia, wherever else we may end up going. So
awesome. Well, man, thanks for joining us again, Kyle, Matt. Thank you as always. Dad's Watching Sports. We've got another great show for you coming next week, and we will see you then. This has been Dad's Watching Sports. Take care, everyone.